Hello and welcome to Turning Point Tactics, the competitive Kill Team 40k podcast and YouTube channel focused on giving you the strategies and tactics to siege initiative every turning point. I'm your host Ryan and you're listening to our Threat Guide series where we cover your opponent's factions and give you the knowledge to defeat them. The episodes will cover their strengths, their weaknesses, any gotchas they might have, as well as giving you some suggested tactics and counters to defeat them. With all things Kill Team, there are no certainties. So you'll have to take this as a reference and adapt your tactics to you, your team, the terrain, and the mission. Before we begin, I want to give a massive shout out to my patrons. You guys are incredible and I hugely appreciate the support you give me. If you too are interested in supporting the channel, there's a few ways you can go about doing so. Firstly, you too can become a patron, where you'll get access to the Discord, patron priority questions, early access to content, some exclusive content, as well as tournament rewards. This really is the best way to support the channel, and we try our hardest to support the patrons as much as we can. Secondly, if you find yourself buying Kill Team goodies or hobby supplies, you can use one of our affiliate links. This means that with every purchase you make, a little bit comes to the channel. It'll cost you nothing, but it'll help us keep the show going. We have affiliate links with Element Games in the UK or Noble Knight Games in the US. Finally, you can always support for free without spending a penny. It's as simple as hitting subscribe, liking the video, and sharing amongst your local community. Telling your friends about us is a great way to connect the communities and help elevate everyone's game. We're keen to hear your thoughts and feedback, so don't leave that comment box empty. Let us know what you think. Maybe we missed something, or maybe you have a better strategy. Drop a comment and let us know. Once again, thank you for your support, and with all that said, let's get into it. On this episode of Threat Guide, we're talking about Agents of the Imperium and the Elucidian Starstrider kill team. This is a 10 operative kill team with a mixture of 8, 7 and 6 wound operatives. So let's firstly talk about their strengths. Although they're only a 10 operative kill team with an average wounds of 7 and a 5 up save, they have multiple ways to increase that durability. Firstly, they have a ploy to do damage reduction whilst on an objective or within 6 inches of your deployment zone, and they also have equipment to increase their armor save to a 4+. This actually makes them surprisingly tanky, combined with the fact that one operative has a built-in just a scratch. Their key operatives as well, with their leader has invulnerable save, and their assassin has invulnerable save as well as the Electromeister handing out defensive rerolls within a 4-inch bubble. All of this combined leads to a surprisingly durable effect when you're trying to force damage to against this, what would be viewed as a human team. Their ploys themselves are another massive strength. They have a huge amount of variety. Their strategic ploys are all very, very useful and very beneficial. They can increase their movement speed, they can increase their reliability in shooting, and they can increase their defensive buff. And they can also heal themselves, GA2, and add APL wherever they need to. This is the strongest set of ploys I've seen on a kill team in a long time. To combine with this, they have what's referred to as a Warrant of Trade. It's a faction ability and gives them 5 unique abilities before the game starts. They can reroll the attacker defender dice. This is often not picked. They can add 1 CP to their team, which is often a absolute auto-include. They can also do things like reroll with initiative roll, take additional equipment points, and do an additional scouting step. This is really, really strong and allows the team to flex up as the mission goes on and adapt to each team that they're playing against. They have a particularly strong operative with the Assassin. This is a 3 APL model with 8 wounds, a 5 invulnerable save, and a 6 up feel no pain. However, she also has a power weapon with hitting on 2s, 4/6 damage, lethal 5, and the ability to parry first before the attacker. Equipped, she also has a silent stun dart mask to be able to hand out -1 APL. This means that she can move on to an objective, capture it, or if you're playing capture, move on to an objective and dart mask the model on it to reduce the APL control and then potentially contest objectives you weren't expecting. This is a really strong combination and lets her play both the mission and provide a massive offensive output. This team also have the ability to put a large mental tax on your opponent through the use of their privateer support assets. These are effectively aerial strikes that are called in via the Navis operatives, including Elucidian Vane. So that's any Voidman, Voidmaster, or the leader. They can bring in an AP2 direct fire shot to do good damage against an elite or a hard target, or a 2-inch blast or a 3-inch blast at varying damage scales. The way that these assets are activated means that you can create a variety of angles that people aren't expecting. Good Starstrider players will position Navis operatives across the map and give you more and more problems that you have to try and solve. Only one mistake means that you can suddenly be receiving a large blast or a beam to the face that you weren't necessarily expecting. This team is also incredibly fast. The ability to instantly add APL to a Navis operative, the ability to have free mission actions, a 3 APL model as base, and the ability to GA2 means out the gate these guys can be moving very, very quickly. Combine this with the fact that they have a ploy to add 1 inch to movement, and suddenly objectives within 10 inches can be double grabbed at the start of the game. This means that they are very, very good at rush play on objectives. They're good at getting out early, scoring points, and going 4-2 on the first turning point. They also have a very, very explosive opening on turning point 2 with the Voidmaster and a Voidsman armed with a crack grenade. These models can GA2, they can be given an extra APL, the Voidmaster can shoot twice, and the crack grenade can have double balanced. This means that you effectively have 2 4 damage weapons going off and a bolter at the same time, potentially giving you a triple kill option against 7 wound opponents, or even if you're lucky, 8 wound opponents. Starstriders have the best medic in the game. The Rejuvenant Adept is able to do the standard revive that you are normally expecting, but they also, when they heal, do D3 plus 3, and when they revive, it revives models with 3 runes rather than 1. Combine this with the fact that she has a 6-inch ignore injury aura, and that means that you can be reviving models and they can still be fighting at full effectiveness. This is by far the strongest medic that we've seen, and really is a linchpin in their team for their durability. With their Warrant of Trade, they have the ability to reroll initiative on the second turning point. This means that they can play quite aggressively on turning point 1, with the ability to potentially set up a double or triple kill at the beginning of the turning point, and have that reroll to guarantee or make it more likely to achieve it. Finally, the last strength I would say is their Daring Tactical Ploy. This is their ability to add 1 APL to a Navis operative wherever they need it, whenever they need it. This is more beneficial than a comms in ways, because it means that you can have it on one side of the board on one turning point and then shoot it to the other side of the board on the other. This flexibility is key for this team's success. So let's talk about some of their weaknesses. They only have a few key threats. This is their hero models that are able to output the damage that you would expect. They also have a gunner, but they are linked to heavy, and those assets can only be brought in every other turn, meaning that you can't necessarily have your AP weapon whenever you need it. This means that if you lose those key threats, suddenly the fighting force of the team quickly deteriorates. They're also by far one of the most CP hungry teams in the game. They have access to an amazing set of ploys, and they want to use them all at the same time. If anything, there is too many options with these ploys, and it'd be quite easy for a player to misuse their CP and miss out later on in the game on having a critical ploy that they need when they need it. This also exposes them to teams that can potentially deny ploys or increase the CP cost. There are also only 11 activations if they get their asset off. Good players will deny you this asset on turning point 1 and force you to being a 10 activation team. The alternating nature of their assets means that the elite can get a respite from their AP2 weapons. If you can't use your asset on turning point 1, you can use it on turning point 2, but then you can't use it again until turning point 4. That means that at that point, the game might be won or lost, and your asset hasn't done the effect it needed to do during the course of the game. This is really, really important for Starstriders to get that AP2 asset off on turning point 1 versus elites, otherwise they'll struggle to do the damage they need to throughout the course of the game. We identified that this team plays around a few key hero models, and it's quite easy for those models to become task saturated, with too many threats for them to deal with, or having to complete mission actions rather than killing, or vice versa. This means that they can very quickly have too much to do and not be able to carry the team going forwards. We talked about the benefit of the Daring Tactical Ploy, but the fact that the comms can only be used on Navis and cost 1 CP means that sometimes you won't have the CP to be able to use it, or you want it on a different model where it can't be then used. A lot of this team's durability comes into its ability to use Undaunted Explorers on objective markers. This is where they can halve a single damage dice the first time they're shot or fought in combat, whilst they're on objective or within 6 inches of deployment zone. The issue with this is it plays quite well into seek and destroy teams as well as security trying to protect assets. If you're not on objective, this team will fall apart quite quickly with only 7 wounds and a 5-up save, or a 4-up save if you increase the armour. Finally, this team does lack APL control and capture. The Assassin is one means of getting 3 APL, but their comms is instantaneous and doesn't last until the end of the turning point. This means they can't stack APL into turning point 2 to deliver more impactful damage and maintain APL on objectives. So let's talk through this team's gotchas. Firstly, the privateer support assets. There are 3 options with this. The first one is the Archaeotech Beam. It's 4 attacks on 3s, 6-7 damage, AP2 and Barrage. The second option is a Guided Shell, 5 attacks on 4s, 3-5 damage, Barrage and Blast 2. And finally the Cluster Bomb, 5 attacks on 4s, 2-3 damage, Barrage, Blast 3. Of note, remember that on Into the Dark, those blasts get lethal 5, so actually the Guided Shell with its 3-5 profile can become quite violent. The Barrage keyword means that you can't retain cover unless you have cover directly above you. This catches out teams like Kroot or Wormblade reliant on their double retains to stay alive. Additionally, this team has access to that instantaneous 3 APL where they need it when they need it for 1 CP. This can be used to steal objectives from you or move, dash and get extended ranges on threats that you weren't necessarily expecting. Combine this with their ability to have that Navis GA2, which is activating 2 Navis operatives within 6 inches of each other, but that can be the Voidmaster and a crack grenade or a frag grenade or 2 grenades in whichever combo they want. This then, combined with that instant 3 APL, gives surprising threat ranges across the map, particularly if they have +1 inch to their move. The Medic Revive will catch you out quite frequently, as they can have an equipment which means they have no APL negative to do in the revive, and the no injury aura. This means they can be reviving their gunner, who can then shoot on still full ballistic skill, and the medic is still going to act as if there was no change. This team also has access to quite a lot of indirect, both the standard, crack and frag grenade, but also Vayne with her heirloom relic pistol. This is an indirect 4-5 damage weapon with P1 hitting on 3s, very similar to the profile of a crack grenade. Combine this with the fact she also has a digital laser, which is indirect but only a 3 inch range, but it has lethal 3+, to dealing 2 mortal wounds each time it hits. This is great for finishing off a 6 to 8 wound model with quite a surprising amount of mortal wound damage. But there is another way for them to get an effective, another means of indirect, the close range privateer support asset. They can move and dash a model to be within 2 inches of you, and then, in the following activation, hit you with an architect beam, or, more dangerously, an explosive shell with some splashback potential. This means they can move and dash a Navis operative onto an objective, and then subsequently hit you with an architect beam in the following activation, stealing the objective from you and killing a model, whilst continually increasing their activation count. It's important to remember how fast this team is. With that 7 inch move potential from one of their ploys, all they have to do is end close to your deployment zone. So quite often this team is moving 7 inches as fast as in session, or something similar. They have another ploy called Survivalist to be able to regain wounds on command. If the operative is more than 3 inches from enemy operatives, it can immediately regain 4 lost wounds. This is very useful for damage breakpoints, particularly on melee operatives like the Assassin, to potentially regain to full fighting effectiveness and then go and get another kill. But it can also be used to overcome injury and move on to objectives to subsequently steal them. They also have the free fight or shoot action on their leader with Vayne. This means that she can move, dash, and then fire her indirect pistol for a 15 inch threat range, or a 16 inch threat range if she's paid for the extra movement potential. But it also enables a double kill potential with a charge, fight, and then subsequent shoot. The Electromeister has a few tricks as well. They can activate a Voltgeist field, so if you move within 2 inches of them you receive D6 mortals, or they can supercharge their pistol to achieve lethal 4+. With the splash capability of this means that they can be handing out quite a lot of mortal wounds to models within close proximity. So, how do we go about countering Starstriders then? Well, firstly, I talked about the fact that they're a hero-based team. If you can prioritise their key threats, you can quite quickly remove their killing potential and take the teeth out of the team. I'd always recommend avoiding a turn 2 initiative player versus this team. With the ability to reroll initiatives, if they have the advantage, they're on a 75% chance to win. If they don't have the advantage, they're still on a 58% chance to get initiative with that reroll. Make sure you can account for this and don't play too aggressive on turning point 1 if you can't yourself reroll the initiative. You need to make sure you monitor the placement of their models. Look where their 3 APL model is, look where their free mission action model is, and then try and match the APL of your team accordingly. If you can place a 3 AP model to deny their free mission action, or if you can place 2 models to deny their assassin, that allows you potentially to steal objectives they weren't necessarily expecting and avoid a 4-2 on turning point 1. You need to make sure you avoid grouping your models within 3 inches and also 2 inches. 3 inches is for the larger blast with less damage, and 2 inches for the more focused one. This will often catch people out as they're not expecting, particularly on Into the Dark, a large 3 inch range blast with lethal 5. On turning point 1, where possible, you should be forcing the Starstriders to have initiative. This will give you the advantage on turning point 2 and maybe force them to use their reroll, but also it means that you have more chance to be able to wait out their activations and get into an Overwatch period with their assets. Remember, their assets themselves can't be used in Overwatch, so if you can wait out their first 10 activations, the asset is no longer a threat to you and you can freely move around the battle space. Undaunted Explorers can only be used on the first attack dice used against it. This means that when you're in melee, you need to be careful how you use your dice and when you use them. For instance, if you're using a power weapon, you should be hitting with your normal damage first to do 2 damage when halved, and then hitting with your crit to do the 6 damage from a total of 8. If you do it in the reverse way, your first hit, the crit, will be halved to 3, and then your normal damage will remain at 4, doing only 7. Against the 8 wound operatives, this will not be sufficient to kill them. You can also use chip damage via frag grenades or an alternate means to be able to remove this first time damage is inflicted benefit for them. If you can chip them a little bit, suddenly they become significantly less durable and allows you to get the kills that you need where you need them. A reminder not to go within 2 inches of an Navis operative even if they have already activated. If they still have the beam available to them, just placing within 2 inches opens up the option for an overhead architect beam and then killing one of your models and extending their activations. Finally, if you're an Elites player, I highly recommend that on Turning Point 1, you try your hardest to deny the Turn 1 Architect beam. If they don't achieve it on Turning Point 1, they won't be able to use it again until Turning Point 2 and Turning Point 4. Turning Point 4 is usually too late for the beam, so really they only get one effective use out of it. However, on Turning Point 1, if they do get to use it, they'll get to use it then and again on Turning Point 3, and that can potentially remove 2 models off the board straight away. You can use things like smoke grenades and other means of obscurity to deny these weapons. They have no means to get around this, and therefore you might be able to position safely during Turning Point 1. That concludes the briefing. What questions do you have? So that brings us to the end of this episode. Hopefully you found something new or useful while listening, and if you did, throwing us a like would be greatly appreciated. You can also share this with your friends so they can benefit as well. If you want to make sure you don't miss any episodes, make sure you subscribe to the channel and set the bell icon so you get notifications as soon as the next episode drops. It really is the best way to help a small YouTube channel like ours. If you can't wait and you want early access, you can join our Patreon, where you get exclusive access to all of our content ahead of time, as well as exclusive videos, access to our Discord, patron priority questions, and tournament rewards. If you are an existing patron, let me take this moment once again to say thank you for all your support. It really means the world. As always, we'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback. Just drop a comment below and we'll get right to you. Thank you so much for listening. I'm your host Ryan, this has been Turning Point Tactics, and we'll see you next time.